Well, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I did cover the developing story of Tim Walz, the VP pick potentially being replaced due to the Republicans finding out about his combat record. That's a horrible look for Americans in general, lying about it for more political advantages, saying you served overseas and were in a combat zone or you had a gun in a combat zone when you didn't. This is all big stuff. They're trying to cover it up, but now even CNN's coming out and criticizing Kamala, criticizing Walz. It would be an insanely weak thing for the Democrats to replace Walz. I thought Shapiro was the obvious pick. You can say, well, it's the Israel stuff. I always thought that was such a small percentage of their party, but I guess considering we're talking about very small margins in all of the Rust Belt states, you could understand what they mean, and maybe Shapiro turning off people in Michigan and possibly Wisconsin. But at this point, now you've got two people that are far left. The strategy, I think, and the dynamic is they're going to try and make Kamala more moderate, if you will, even though she was voted or she was rated the most liberal governor in 2019. She is very liberal. They both are, so they have to kind of walk all of their statements back, which is why I was so surprised you would go with Walz, considering it's like a double negative with both of them being very far to the left and not really appealing to independent people. But these stories talking about him lying about him serving in combat, and apparently he went to Italy, not Iraq. So a bit of a difference there, and it was not a combat zone. Now that's how you pull up to Detroit. They were told Taylor Swift was having a free concert. Alex Jones comes out and says that, yeah, no, this is ridiculous. I don't know if you guys saw this charade where they tried to say like there was 15,000 people there. There were people on site reporting there's about 5,000 people there, and it was such a disheveled mess. They bust people in, and nobody could get back. I'll go to the tweet where it says it, but that was a complete mess. They tried to do this optics thing like, oh, everyone just pulled up, right when Kamala was landing. It's so amazing. It is all completely fake support. And Kamala Harris, I think this was probably during that rally, when I am president, I will bring down prices. Your administration, like, this is so stupid, man. I mean, it's insulting to the American public. It really is. When you're vice president, you've been vice president for 4 years. I understand the vice president doesn't have a ton of power, but the idea that Kamala Harris will suddenly come in and be this hero and significantly better at governing than Biden, no, it's going to be the exact same policies. Do we like it's hilarious how she's VP right now and she's trying to distance herself and basically, I mean, make fun of the Biden administration by saying, the prices are out of control, it's terrible. Let me get in and actually work right now. Yes, I'm the VP. Don't pay attention to that. It's all Biden's fault. It's like, how can you even make that argument? It seems so ridiculous, and that's what people are calling out. It's almost like she's arguing, oh, Trump's in office right now, and when I get in, I'll bring the prices down. That makes more sense, but that's not the case. She's vice president right now. So it's just a dumb argument in general. Oh my, it looks like Tim Walz may have also used stolen valor claims to falsely receive retirement pay he wasn't entitled to. And see, this is where all the investigations play out. He got bumped down when he was an E9 to an E8, and he said that he was at E9, but they bumped him down because he retired before actually serving. He didn't complete, he had to spend apparently 2 years completing service to be elevated, and he didn't do that, so he got bumped back down. And then you've got CNN fact-checking the information, peddling some false stuff. I don't like using the word disinformation or misinformation. That's just because they use it. It's one of their trigger words. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But you can see all of this stuff. It's basically just proves that Walz did indeed, his unit was deployed and he left before they could go, and there was like a warning alert, and then there was an emergency alert, and CNN's trying to say, well, he left before he was actually alerted to go. No, there was a warning alert, and then he left, and there was another alert confirming they were leaving. So he left knowing that his unit was being deployed. And then here is the big stuff on Tim Walz, flat out admitting, this is in 2006, to abandoning his battalion if deployed to Iraq to run for Congress. And so he's exposed right there. That was all the way back in his, I guess actually in 2005. But you've also got this, behind closed doors, Democrats can see 500,000 tweets about stolen valor and are wondering if they made a gigantic mistake. A few very powerful Democrats are already wondering if a pre-convention switch is in order. The only thing holding them back, if Kamala dumps her own running mate right after forcing Biden out of the race, what does that say about her? Well, it's a terrible look logistically, and just in general. The Democrats would be replacing their presidential candidate and their vice presidential candidate, especially after only a few days. I think it would just be too bad of a look, because they would have to admit that Republicans are right about this, and the vetting they did on Walz was horrible, and it would just be very, very embarrassing if they did replace him. I'm not sure how they can swing that. I will say, if somehow it happened and Shapiro got in, I thought Shapiro was the better choice, so I'm very happy who it is now, and I'm hopeful they don't change, because, even though we can call this out and say it's ridiculous, these people keep exchanging presidential candidates and VPs because they're just so obsessed with retaining power, it would probably work, because that's just how Americans are. Like, if Shapiro got in, he would probably resonate with more people, but how can you really see, at least with Biden, although they really didn't explain it with Biden because they couldn't say it was his health because they had lied about his health for 2 years. So he just stepped down. And I guess because he said, I was losing the polls, I'm not even still sure why the explanation we got as to why Biden was stepping down, because they didn't admit it was health. But you can understand, I guess, Biden stepping down because everyone said he should because of how bad his health was. This would be a lot harder to do because this is them just failing to vet a VP candidate, and Republicans attacking, the first 2 or 3 days and all of this coming out. So I don't know what they're going to do, but at this point, with the ad money that they spend, it seems like it would be, replacing a VP is one thing, but certainly replacing Kamala is another thing. I know people are also saying the top Democrats are souring on Kamala, and they might want to replace her potentially at the DNC. I'm not sure how you swing even something like that. That would be even harder. You've got exclusive in a newly discovered Zoom recording. The Biden-Harris team reveals how they manipulated voters into thinking Biden's mental decline was disinformation. And see, this is a great example of what I talk about with the words disinformation and misinformation, which really started coming into the ecosystem, into America. We normally didn't use those words too much, but they started coming in 2020 and 2021, and basically, Democrats started using the word disinformation. It's basically anything that they don't like, they deem it as false, so they call it disinformation or misinformation. That's how that word is used, and this is a perfect example of it. So anytime something comes out about Biden's health or how bad he is cognitively, they call it disinformation. No, it's not false, but we don't like that you're saying that about Biden, so we're going to label it disinformation. That is how that's done. And that's why they weaponized the word back in 2020 and 2021. And this is a great example of it. Yes, Biden is declining, but we don't like that you're saying it, so we're going to label it misinformation. Yep, this is exactly right. Look at all these people. This is exactly what they do. CNN suddenly going after Harris and Walz. Things are getting interesting. Well, I don't think they really went after Harris too bad, let's be honest. Walz, yeah, I think they had a few people on questioning it. Van Jones was one of them. Talking about it was kind of ridiculous. Whether or not they vetted this properly with Walz back, 10, 15 years, potentially lying about what he did in combat, that is a cardinal sin, especially when it comes to being a potential VP. And you would think something like that would really push them over the edge and just go with Shapiro, even with the Jewish hit potentially being taken. But listen, maybe they were really concerned about those margins, and they went with someone safer. Who Walz is safer. He's definitely more boring, or I don't even know if he is safer now, considering the stuff that's come out. But he doesn't have the crazy stance, against Palestine that Shapiro has, and in the relation to Israel. And then you do have a Rasmussen poll coming out saying right now that Trump is up by 5, and if you look at the 5-way, Trump has improved by 3 points. Rasmussen, a more Republican pollster, but they were the most accurate pollster in 2016, so those are pretty good numbers for Trump, although, again, they are a little bit more Republican. We've got Tim Walz, I guess someone tweeting this out for him. I'll just say it, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are creepy and, yes, weird. We are not going back. Kind of like how you're not going back to Iraq because you never went there in the first place. Oh, I'm sorry. That was a low blow. I'm sorry about that. That's my bad. But guys, when it comes to this update, we will have to see what ends up happening. I think they're going to try and weather the storm. Remember, they did attack JD Vance pretty hard, and I was just like, just let them do it, weather the storm. But there was never anything like this when it came to Vance. Their only attacks on Vance are kind of ridiculous. They're like, oh, he's Ivy League, he's elitist. It's like, yeah, he came from a poor family. He's being honest when he said that. So that's not even a real attack on Vance. And then they make up the story about the couch. That shows you how desperate they are, and they're actually like arguing that. I mean, you get Democrats, they're like, oh, he had sex with the couch, things like that. I mean, it's just completely fake. It's made up. But why are they doing it? Because they've got nothing else. That's why they're doing it. They have nothing else, and that's why you see all these reports. Trump does the interview with Aiden Ross. Aiden Ross wants to do it. He's happy to do it. He doesn't want to be paid by Trump. He just wants to have Trump on. He's MAGA. And then you've got Kamala Harris, like the Secret Service sending Kai Cenat like 50 messages that are unread, begging to go on and do a stream together. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. It's come out, the DNC, all of their influencers are getting paid around $20,000 to be there because nobody wants to be there because nobody really cares about Kamala Harris. Why would they? She got installed. She had one of the worst approval ratings of any vice president, and probably, honestly, the worst. We just we haven't tracked the VP approval rating nearly as much as the presidential approval rating. But in general, this is not a likable person. She gets installed and you get all these fake polls and you get people, and this is engagement farming, 100%. It's all these wannabe news people on Twitter who all have to tweet at the same time like they're in symphony. Oh my God, Kamala Harris now has flipped Donald Trump and she's got a 51% chance of winning the election. Oh my God, now that Kamala Harris has a 51% chance of winning the election, guys, we're screwed. Oh my God, we're so screwed now. Oh, let me just tell you right now, Donald Trump, I would say if I was predicting, I think he's got like a 99.9999999% chance of winning this election. It's basically, and listen, people go vote, but listen, I'll just say, we do not elect people that are this far left. This is absurd. This woman was not voted in. She's she's absurdly unlikable. She won't even talk to the media, and her running mate is even further left and lied about his combat record to try and seem more impressive, and veterans hate him and are going after him. This is pathetic, this idea that Republicans are now scared that Kamala Harris, who just won't even talk to people, hasn't even done a single debate since like 2019, or I guess she did do one in 2020, the VP debate, but still, it's like, this is lunacy. There's no way. The polls, they're going to go back and forth. Donald Trump, in terms of 2024, is performing way better than 2020 and 2016. So I would not be too worried in terms of that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.